Welcome everyone to another Canada Life public webinar. Our topic today is the emotional cost of financial stress. I'd like to start with a land acknowledgement. Although we are joined by people from across Canada, we are hosting this event from Toronto, which is situated on the territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the Huron-Wendat nations. We acknowledge the Dish with One Spoon Covenant, which is a treaty whose spirit is one based in collective stewardship and sharing of land and resources, and one which extends to all nations living in present-day Toronto. Canada Life acknowledges the harms of the past, and we respect the history, people, and land in the areas we live and operate. And we're committed to building relationships and moving forward in the spirit of truth and reconciliation, guided by shared principles of respect, equality, and collaboration. Today is October 10th, and it's World Mental Health Day. And also in November, it's going to be Financial Literacy Month in Canada. So for our latest public webinar, we thought we'd tackle a topic that would align with both of those events. If you'd like to ask questions, you can, depending on what sort of device you're on. You can either submit questions directly on the screen. The box will appear either at the side of your screen or underneath. Or you can go to slido.com and enter hashtag CLWellbeing in the field that says hashtag enter code here. So the code is CLWellbeing. And we've had actually Slido open since we first announced the webinar. So we've received a few questions already, and we're going to take those as we move through the content. And then at the end of our session today, we'll answer more of your questions. We have a team of moderators who will review and publish the questions as they come in. So keep an eye on Slido, and if you see a question that someone has asked and you have that same question, give it a thumbs up. That will vote it up, and it'll help us prioritize the questions that we answer today. Today, we've assembled a team of people who are ready to talk about resources to support our emotional and financial well-being. As always, we're joined by Marianne Baton, Director of Collaboration and Strategy with Workplace Strategies for Mental Health. I'm Laura, a member of the Wellbeing team at Canada Life, and I'm joined by team members Samia, Ilana, and Ida. And we're also joined by Mike, a member of our education team. We've also compiled a list of resources that we are likely going to refer to today as we have our discussion. So if you'd like to see those resources, click on the resources link at the bottom of your screen. So let's set the stage for what we're talking about today. Financial, mental, and physical health are not three separate and distinct things. They're very much connected. And we know that challenges in one area will impact well-being in each of the other areas. For example, on this slide, you'll see an illustration of the thought process of someone who has made an effort to focus on understanding their current financial situation. And it shows, as you follow the circle, how that effort has paid off from a well-being perspective, not only financially, but physically and mentally as well. Understanding your financial situation helps you feel more confident. It helps reduce financial stress, which helps your emotional well-being. And you can sleep better, which also helps your physical well-being. When you feel well, you can focus on the present and you can think more clearly. When you think more clearly, you're more likely to access the supports that are available to you. You can make the right decisions for today, and you can feel empowered to create the future you want, whatever that looks like for you. Mike.
Yeah, thank you very much, Laura. And I really look forward to today's webinar. So when we consider the sources of stress Canadians experience, I think it comes really as no surprise that surveys show that financial stress is actually one of the #1 causes. We can think of the rising costs of food, clothing, and shelter are mostly frequently expressed as challenges by Canadians. And people may feel that they are struggling just to provide food and shelter for their families. Obviously, with higher interest rates being experienced over the past 12 months, you may struggle with debt and interest costs on the budget. And of course, saving for retirement will take a back seat if it's on your radar at all. So with these daily concerns, it's difficult to force ourselves to take a step back and take proactive steps that will help us move forward. Even if your financial circumstances are less than ideal, it's very important to face these head on and improve our financial futures to help minimize the emotional stress of inaction. So no matter what phase of life you're in, we also need to recognize the impact of our relationships with money. Perhaps there are influences and behaviors from those that are around us that we grew up that we need to recognize and address in terms of adding to your stress. So I want to highlight some of these helpful actions today and how we can implement them to improve your financial well-being and hopefully reduce this stress in your life. So if we go to the next slide, we also need to recognize that our goals and expectations can be derailed by major life events that will happen to all of us, whether it's an unexpected illness or children or grandparents' needs, costly house repairs, market downturns, or job loss. This will shift our priorities very quickly, despite our plans to save for the future. So while some major life events are difficult to predict, others we can assume are going to happen at some point. And there are steps that you can take to protect yourself. If you feel that you're equipped to respond to at least some of these potential events, it'll greatly reduce the level of stress that you may have on your daily life. So remember that circle that Laura just went through. Again, it's all connected in terms of the financial well-being, mental well-being, and physical well-being.
And of course, we know that life doesn't always follow a linear path, and you think you're headed in one direction and something happens that completely changes everything. But throughout all of our twists and turns in life, we know we want to feel well. We want to feel some sense of control. We want quality of life, and we want the ability to do the things that we want to do every day. We want to enjoy our lives in a way that is unique to each of us. So today we are asking you where you are on your life journey. And no matter what age you are, you may be in a position where you're just getting started, or you're starting to get serious, or you're getting close. And our goal is to share information, free resources, and tools that you can use to help you along your journey to financial well-being wherever you are and whatever that means to you. Samia, you're going to get us started on the journey to becoming financially independent.
Thank you. At this stage, we're speaking to people who have now become financially independent, meaning they are earning an income and supporting themselves. Mike, what are those basic steps people at this stage should be talking about?
Yeah, it's a great question. Thanks for that. And for someone who's just starting out in their career, this is really the time to lay a foundation of good financial habits and behaviors that will propel them to meet their current but also future goals. So taking steps early on to become aware and acknowledge their day-to-day finances will really pay off in the long run, financially and emotionally. So if you can invest your time to consider these things while you're just getting started, it's going to greatly reduce the amount of stress you feel of those unknown or unexpected stages of your life. So really by reducing those stresses, reducing the unknown, it's going to start your journey in the right way. And when I think of these points here, you often think of a budget, creating a budget. So what are your needs? Things like rent, groceries, transportation. What are your wants? I think of FOMO, fear of missing out. So maybe you're going on extra vacations or meals out or entertainment. How is that composed of your overall income? And then also savings and debt is a big one. So this is critical in terms of establishing good behaviors that will pay dividends in your future. We also consider things like an emergency or rainy day fund. Right? How are you going to prepare for those unexpected events? And what will that look like for yourself? I think it's really hard to keep in mind that you have to consider your financial future. So if you do lose a job, having an emergency fund or a rainy day fund will reduce the current stress you may feel and being prepared for what may be to come. There's also a consideration of paying off student loans or starting to invest. I often think of having your money work for you or against you. So what are your priorities to help your financial and emotional well-being when you consider where do you start that money working for you? And if we go to the next slide, I think I really like this slide because it goes through really the power of compounding. And I think we've all heard of a very smart person, Albert Einstein. So He once described compound interest as the eighth wonder of the world. Those who understand it earn it, those who don't pay it. So compound interest is interest compounding on interest, year after year. And if you give it enough years, compound interest produces amazing results. And this is what you see here on this slide. So an individual that's starting their career, they're 25, how much would they need to save to get to $450,000? So if you assume a 5% rate of return, that individual would have to save $300 per month. So when you're starting your career, it doesn't have to be your whole paycheck. A little can go a significant way in the long run. Now, if you're starting at age 35, to get to that same level, now all of a sudden you have to spend $550 a month. At 45, $1,100 a month. So what this slide really illustrates is that power of compounding. And if you can start on the right path by saving earlier in your career, it's going to pay dividends as you approach retirement. I'll just briefly mention that this goes the other way as well. So if you have higher interest debt that's compounding on itself, it's going to be harder to get above water. So certainly something to consider as you're starting your career.
Another source of stress can be related to managing your money in a relationship. We were talking about how we were impacted and influenced by our parents, our family, our social environment as we grew up. But we must keep in mind that our partner also had influence and experience that may differ greatly from ours. And when we both bring those experiences to a relationship, well, sometimes we may not find that we're on the same page. Communication is key. You shouldn't feel embarrassed about talking about money with your partner. Money issues in a relationship are quite common. And by sharing honestly, you're taking the first step towards moving in the right direction. Avoiding talking about money or hiding facts about spending or other financial difficulty can make a tough time even harder. Being honest with each other at a starting point can help reduce anxiety and has other many benefits. For example, your partner may have past experience or insight that could actually help your financial situation. It can help determine how you will allocate a windfall of money, such as an inheritance. It can also help on how to deal with financial emergencies. It may confirm that you're on the same page about your future together and the role your finance will play in it. It's also okay to accept that in some situations you may require some guidance and advice from an expert to review your common goals and suggest various options to reach them. While there are benefits to combining finance and relationship, there are also situations where it might be better to agree in keeping finance separate. If you and your partner have different financial goals, you may well decide to keep your finance separate and contribute to each goals individually. Doing this can still allow you to reach the goal. It may just takes a little bit more time. Remember that whatever your financial path is, open dialogue and compromise are key to move forward. Now, let's look at some of the questions we receive in Slido. We did receive a couple of questions that can be related to the getting started topic. The first question, I think maybe could go to Marianne. The topic is having disagreement about money. The person is looking for help to better manage those discussions.
Thanks, Samia. I think the most important thing to understand is that for many people, when we talk about the way they handle money, the individual can feel blamed, like that they're defective because of the way they handle money. And when we have a conversation about this, we need to talk about the shared goals, what we're trying to achieve, and how we'll contribute. Make it about the numbers, the dollars, the cents, and not about personalities. Saying to someone, well, you're just cheap. Or saying to someone, well, you just spend money like it's water, you don't care, is making it about blaming the individual. So the first thing that I'd say about having the conversation is just make it about where do we want to be? What do we want to contribute to it? What are your limitations? And make it about money. Don't make it about character.
Thank you. The second question we have probably would go to Mike. It's about the difference between the RRSP and a TFSA, retirement saving.
Yeah, it's an excellent question. And it's one that I think often comes up when you're first starting to invest. So the first thing I like about this question is that the person has a defined objective. So they talked about this money is for retirement savings. And I can't underline enough that that's so critical to understand what is the purpose of your savings or the account itself. Now, in terms of the differences, I'm going to mention a few between RRSPs and TFSAs. First, there are limits to how much you can save into these accounts. So when you're talking about registered accounts like this, you always want to refer back to the CRA. You want to log into your personal account to understand how much you're allowed to contribute. As Laura mentioned, there's resources on through our presentation through Canada.ca. Another difference you'll find is that the tax structure of these accounts. So RSP contributions provide an immediate tax deduction on your income. So this means you get immediate savings and benefits by contributing. Any growth you experience in the account is also tax deferred. That means that you don't have to pay the government every year on the growth you experience. Keep in mind, however, that when you do eventually withdraw the money physically as cash, that it's going to be taxed as income. So your withdrawal will be taxed as income. So you'll need to be really careful in terms of how much you're withdrawing. What is the plan for that money? What are the tax implications? And have you planned that out appropriately? Now, when we talk about the tax-free savings account, your contributions are made after tax dollars. So you don't get that immediate benefit like you do with the RRSP. However, the benefit of this account is that any growth you experience from your investments is tax-free. So no additional taxes will need to be paid when you eventually withdraw the money. So this could mean that there's more flexibility with the purpose of this account. It could be a supplement to retirement income, short, midterm, or long-term goals that may not have to deal with retirement as well. So hopefully that helps. And over to you, Samia and Alana, for the next topic.
All right. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Samia. When we start getting serious about our financial future, we are starting to think long term. For some of us, it's about buying a house, a condo, maybe planning a future career change, investing in a business. This is also the time in our lives when many of us start planning for our dependents' future. It is the time to think that what we need to save, thinking about what we need to save to live comfortably, and all of that will depend on what our needs and wants are for the future that we envision for ourselves and our family. As I mentioned, now we are getting serious about our financial future. We begin to think about longer-term personal goals and what they will cost. We are starting to think about our retirement and how much we will need to save to live the life we hope for and dreamed about. Some of us may hope to travel a lot or start a small business venture. Some of us may be thinking about creating hobbies, staying fit, staying healthy. Some of us maybe want to get back to school or even pay for our children, grandchildren, education. When I think about my own family, I don't think that my husband and I ever envisioned that both of our kids will be attending university out of province and the cost associated not just with tuition, but living expenses, travel expenses back and forth home. This to us really emphasizes that whatever our dreams are, our financial plan should factor in the cost. So Mike, this question is for you. Where will this money come from? Please give us some insight into planning for longer-term personal goals.
Yeah, thank you so much. And you're right. I think as you're getting serious about your finances at this stage, hopefully that you have some personal savings and investment. So this could be for the long term, right? At this stage, it's really critical that we start focusing on the accumulation part of these accounts, but also start considering where are those long-term personal goals and ultimately how are you going to pay for them. And they could be in accounts in your personal savings. So there's 3 different sources we're going to speak of. Personal savings could be your investments, RSP, RESP, TFSA, money in your bank account that could be readily available. This is going to obviously be one of the main sources of income for you to really fund that future and to maintain that lifestyle as you stop working. You may also have an employer-sponsored retirement plan. So not all employers have one. So in fact, less than 50% of Canadians have a retirement savings plan in the workplace. So for those that are on the line that don't have one, you're not alone. For those that do have an employer plan, you just want to make sure that you're making most of this savings opportunity. So there are often matching contributions that you can take advantage of, pension opportunities that are employed by your sponsors. So there's different characteristics of a group plan that can really help you save and spend for these goals that you may have in the future. The last source would obviously be the government retirement benefits. So this would be the CPP, Old Age Security, or Guaranteed Income Supplement. Again, there are a lot of rules and limits that you need to be aware of in determining when you're going to receive these benefits, how much you're going to receive. And at this stage, as you're getting serious, it's certainly worth investigating these sources of income and understand how they can sustain as you approach your retirement years. So if we go to the next slide, so my financial life file, I think this is critical stage when you're getting serious is to really start organizing yourself. What are your long-term, what is your long-term goals? And I think of myself, I have a closet in my house that's very disorganized. And you know what, maybe on a long weekend, Thanksgiving, perhaps, you have some extra time to unorganize that closet. And if you think of the emotional well-being as once it's organized, once you've took out the clutter, it can really have a substantial impact on your mental health. So what is a financial life folder? What do I mean when I say that? So really, there's a few important documents that you want to make sure you have, potentially for yourself, but also for your other family members, your spouse, your children, even powers of attorney when we start to consider things like estate planning. So just to go through some documents that you'd want to consider having in your financial life file, this would be things like your statements, your financial accounts, receipts for major purchases, various insurance policies, debt statements, obviously your will, your power of attorney. If you planned and pre-planned a burial arrangement, good for you. Obviously, having a document like that would be very important to have in your financial life file. Anything, again, that you think is very relevant for your financial and lifestyle well-being is important to have in this file. That coincides with having a list of important people that help you through your financial journey. A lot of us will partner with financial professionals like a lawyer, accountant, financial planners, tax advisors, information about your financial institution. All of these things are critical to have in a financial file and readily accessible. So you want to make sure this financial file is easy to find, right? A quick tip, I would say designate either on your phone or in your calendar, either once a month or on a yearly basis to refresh these documents as well. So as new information comes in, you want to make sure this financial life file is up to date. For those that are more technically inclined, I'd recommend things like a thumb drive. If everything's stored on your computer, make sure you have this external source available, just in case something happens to your computer or your information gets compromised, where this information will be readily available. The folder should also be placed in somewhere that's secure and easy to locate. So as I mentioned, it may not just be for yourself. You may want to inform your power of attorney or spouse or child where this document is. So if anything were to happen to you, someone would be able to find this information, find these documents, and be able to connect with people that might be very important at that time. I think personally myself, a safe or a locked file cabinet would be a great location for a financial file. So as you're getting serious, your financial lives are going to be more complicated. So hopefully having this resource as a way to organize yourself is a way to really de-stress your life and provide clarity of the unknown.
Thank you, Mike, for these very practical suggestions and great reminders. We have a couple of questions in Slido that I wanted to ask today. And the first one is from Marianne. And Marianne, it has to do with feeling overwhelmed. In this case, feeling overwhelmed with debt due to a change in family circumstances. What can we do to feel more in control of how we are feeling today when we do feel overwhelmed?
Mm-hmm. I think the fact that this person can even say that they're overwhelmed is a step in the right direction. I can't tell you, Alana, how many people I've seen, they don't want to talk about it. They don't open their mail. They just can't face it at all. And what happens then, of course, is it's still there as anxiety in the background, and it's just affecting them all the time. And the most important piece is to reach out for the help you need. In our country, we've got so many different sources of free help to deal with debt. People that will sit down with you, go through everything, hold your hand, help you to do it. If you have a friend or a family member, that's great. But if not, there's Credit Counseling Services of Canada. There's places that will help you. And Mike really said it. It is like ripping off the Band-Aid. It is about not having this hanging over your head. Deal with it. There's ways that you can be helped, but you have to face it and move forward.
Thank you, Marianne. Mike, I'm going to ask you one more question. People are asking about paying down a mortgage or putting more money into investments. What would you suggest?
Yeah, it's a great question. And again, it's one that's very common. So whoever asked it, you're not alone in contemplating what is best. And when I think of someone in the stage of getting serious where they're progressing in their career, maybe it means you have more disposable income. Right? And you have that decision versus when you're just starting and just scraping by. So first and foremost, I would say there's no one right answer to that question, right? But what I would say is when I hear it is that it's a great way to engage with a professional, a financial professional, to help you organize your goals and really figure out what's most important to you. So when I think of financial wellness, some people may value having less debt and just understanding that they owe less overall. While others, they might feel more comfortable knowing that they have more assets that they can see that could potentially be more liquid should they need to use them. So there's no one right answer to this question, unfortunately. Again, you want to work with a professional, understand what are the financial, what are the numbers telling you, what's the pros and cons of either paying down your debt or investing more. And I think if you work with a financial professional to understand what's most important to you to feel more financially secure, it's going to help with your financial wellness as well.
Thank you both for supporting these questions. And now I'm going to pass it over to Ida to cover our last topic.
Thank you, Elena. So what do we mean by getting closer? We're talking about being perhaps 3 to 5 years away from retirement. At this point, we should have a fairly clear idea of what we want our retirement to look like, but may also be wondering, if we're really considering everything that we should. Yes, and of course it is about how much money we have versus how much money we're going to need, but it's also about what do we want our retirement to look like. What will our days look like? How and with whom will we spend our time? Whenever retirement is brought up in our house, the big question is always, what will we do? Will we continue current hobbies or perhaps find some new ones? will we enhance our personal fitness? Or maybe spend some time traveling? And for that, I'm hopeful. But regardless of what our goals are, we'll need to be prepared for the cost of those activities among other eventual expenses. So here are some key questions that we can ask ourselves about our retirement. At what age would we like to retire? Where will we live? Will we stay where we are, or is there somewhere else that we'd like to be? Will our children or perhaps grandchildren live with us and depend on us? Or how about any obligations or outstanding debts? And is there a plan in place to eliminate debt before we begin to live on a fixed income? And how about a legacy? Many people really hope to be able to leave something to family and friends. So how much and to how many people? Another big question is, do we plan to continue to work after our official retirement? One of the things to consider is if you have a budget now, it's a good idea to examine it to identify what expenses will remain the same and what might increase or decrease or even be eliminated entirely. And if you don't have a budget right now, perhaps it's a good time to think about making one. From a mental health perspective, at this stage, we want to start to build a mindset that helps us adapt and enjoy the changes that we're going to experience with retiring. From a mindset perspective, it's really helpful to think about retiring to something versus from something. Because retirement is not the end of a productive life, it's merely a shift to different activities that are focused on enhancing our lives just in a different way. And if we're lucky, like my 91-year-old father, our retirement years may represent up to a third of our lives. And we want to spend that time doing things that we're passionate about, that we enjoy, and really bring purpose to our lives. So it's important to do some planning and consider what we want out of our retirement years. In Workplace Strategies for Mental Health, our Retiring Well resource provides information for individuals who are beginning to think about what they want their lives to look like in retirement. Now, it's a downloadable and fillable questionnaire, and it asks questions that are important for each of us to really think about. So, Mike, I am wondering, what else should we be thinking about as we get closer to retirement?
Yeah, thanks very much. And that Retiring Well document, it's very useful. So I encourage everyone to download it. And when you are considering being proactive at this stage, what your life will look like, you can't avoid also looking at what may become a risk for your desired lifestyle. So thankfully, most Canadians are living longer, but there is a risk of longevity and outliving your savings. So what does your financial plan indicate in terms of how long you'll have your savings last? Right? What are the factors going into that? Obviously, in the news, inflation you hear in the business news almost practically every day. That's the rising cost of prices, and that could affect, if you're on a fixed income, it may affect how much your lifestyle costs you throughout your retirement. So this is a key risk you need to consider. Another risk is also asset allocation. What is your rate of return or expected rate of return? How much risk is associated with those investments? Again, markets can be volatile, so you need to account for that in terms of how much growth you're experiencing and how long your money will last. I also think of access withdrawals. So when someone's, say, first starting to retire, you have a lot more time on your hands, right? And if you haven't proactively planned ahead of what that will look like, maybe it means spending more money in places you didn't think of. Now, this can impact your longer-term retirement, where if you spend too much and you have access withdrawals more than you planned at the beginning of retirement, it may lead to you running out of money on the latter stages of your retirement. Obviously, rising prices isn't immune from the healthcare perspective. So healthcare, long-term care costs, naturally this is going to compose a bigger portion of your budget than when you're unretired. and it will only get worse as you age. So you have to make sure to account for this when you're considering what does retirement look like for you. Lastly, there may also be a change in your financial or your family situation, rather. So either for yourself or other family members, where separation or divorce can really derail what your retirement plans were. It can be a challenging process mentally, emotionally, financially, and navigating this life change is crucial in terms of considering the important decisions if you begin a separation. So we've provided a number of links to resources that can help you work through your financial and emotional considerations as you have a major life change. We also want to consider estate planning, right? There was a question previously where someone asked, is this a topic that's going to be addressed? And yes, it is. It's a critical part of your well-being, and really not just at retirement, but at any stage, understanding your estate planning can be very beneficial. So what is estate planning? So it's a preparation for illness or death. So what does it ultimately help with? Things like protecting your assets, understanding, hey, there could be tax implications and once you pass away that you need to be aware of. Also, avoiding family conflict. So I think either yourself personally or everyone on the line has known someone where has been personally affected through a significant loss, and then the unknown of knowing where these assets are. So it wasn't communicated when someone was living, and then it causes strife within the family by not having an estate plan and understanding where the legacy will be. There's also tax efficiencies that you need to be aware of. Things like beneficiaries, having successors for your wealth can mean more money in your loved one's hands versus being taxed or wasted away. Also, the legacy of meeting the obligations when you pass. So someone is relying on you throughout their retirement. You want to make sure you're taking care of them, and certainly estate planning can help with this and meet those obligations. So if we go to the next slide, there are three main documents or three main sources that I want to go through today. Again, tips and tricks you can take with you. So as a part of estate planning, obviously the will comes to mind. So a will is a legal document that expresses a person's wishes as to how their property is distributed after their death, and which persons are to manage the assets until its final distribution. So without a will, your assets may be divided by law according to probate. I also think of things like executors. So they're the ones that are going to take action on the proceedings of the will. You want to make sure to communicate with these individuals who they are. You don't want to surprise someone because it is quite the task to fulfill. Again, there are resources at the end of this that you can have for these roles as well. When we think of a power of attorney, this document applies to when you are alive. So a will was when you pass away, it comes into effect. A power of attorney applies when you are alive. And it's to authorize a person to make financial or medical decisions on your behalf. So who would that person be if you can't make these decisions on your own? Now, a lot of people just consider automatically it'd be a spouse or a common law partner. Not necessarily so. You have to consider who would be able to handle this task, who do you trust, give you peace of mind. Also, when we think of life changes, such as the birth of a child, a marriage, a divorce, this can certainly derail who your power of attorney may be. So you want to make sure to review this on a regular basis and make sure your family is prepared, no matter what life throws at you. The last item, which is an easy one, which is beneficiaries. So when we talk of registered investment accounts, things like RRSPs, TFSAs, pensions, your insurance as well, you want to make sure to name a beneficiary, or else, again, there could be a probate applicable to these accounts. Again, you want to consider separations, divorces, common law relationships when we're trying to do this. Now, when you have a pension, consider there are provincial rules that are applicable. So you want to make sure you understand, do your due diligence, understand What are the implications of the pension and who is owed what? I also think of, again, your financial life file, just to plug this again that we talked about earlier. This is a key part of making sure you have these documents as a part of that file, and make sure that additional steps that are to be taken from your estate perspective are looked after in that file. So I think we're going to go next to the Slido questions.
Thank you, Mike. We had one question in Slido that really relates to what we've been talking about, and that's the importance of finding purpose. Or in this case, as you can see, a fear for not finding purpose. Marianne, what additional advice can you share with us?
Well, first I want to say that the Retiring Well resource that's free on Workplace Strategies is exactly about this, because whoever asked this question really understands that if we don't have a reason to get up in the morning, if we don't have something to do, whether that is just something that's fun, something that's helping others, whatever, then yes, life lacks meaning and we need to create that. So I strongly suggest that you look at the Retiring Well, because what it does is it asks you to think about the contributions that you make to the lives of others, because that gives us meaning. And you think about the contributions others make to your life, because that has meaning as well. But I just want to, if we have time, Alana, just to talk briefly about the retirement and the savings and all of that, which I know is creating a lot of anxiety for people who go, I can barely pay my bills. I'm just trying to get by. And you're thinking I'm going to save for retirement. I can't do it. And my idea of retirement is I get to travel the world and get to do a whole bunch of things. But what I know is that my mother was a janitor who had no pension, who had no savings. She was a single mother. And when she retired, she was in a subsidized apartment, and the only money she had was CPP and OAC. So what the government gave her was all she had. She didn't have a vehicle, so because she couldn't afford the insurance and the gas. My mother had a very meaningful life in retirement. Every day she got up and wondered who she could serve, who she could help, whether it was the people in her building, her neighbors, whether it was her grandchildren or her children or someone else. So just understand that the meaning and the purpose is the most important thing. The money to be able to do fun stuff is great, but even if you don't have it, finding meaning and purpose, finding a way that you can contribute and make a difference is the most critical part to retirement.
Thank you, Marianne. Laura, do we have any more questions in Slido at this time?
Looks like we do. Thanks, Ida. We were hoping to have around 15 minutes towards the end to take up the questions, so that's great. Thank you to our moderators who've put through some questions, and to those of you who have voted. I'm going to try to direct these either to Marianne or Mike. So it looks like the first one, Marianne, I think might be going your way. What are some general coping strategies for anxiety and stresses over money? And the cost of living has dramatically increased, of course, as we've been chatting about. So any other general coping strategies?
Yeah, so it's different for different people. I have some people who only deal with cash, which seems really strange in today's world. But because of that, they feel they have control. They know how much they have, they buy what they need, and they spend no more. For other people, they got someone else in the family to take care of the money, so they don't. They're only given what they're allowed to spend, and they don't have to take care of it. Whereas the other person doesn't mind and isn't stressed by it. So sometimes it's as simple as that. Sometimes it is having a budget, knowing exactly where your money's going. And sometimes it is not. It is simply saying, I'm not spending anything that's not required, and I'm going to just get advice on how I can amalgamate. So there's many different ideas. The thing is, find it in order to preserve the quality of your life, because worrying about money every day is bad for both your physical and mental health.
And thank you, Marianne. The next question, Mike, we've partially talked about it, but I think that we might have more to say. How do you plan for retirement with the rising cost of living and interest rates affecting us now? And I know you talked about the power of compound interest and just that small little amount that you might want to allocate just to get yourself started. But do you have anything else to add to that? It's quite a popular question.
It's very popular, and I understand exactly why. So when I think of higher cost of living and interest rates, again, I will iterate working with a financial professional, I think, is really critical. Because then you can consider things like maybe mapping out a higher inflation rate in your financial plan or higher interest rates. One thing I'll mention when you're investing is higher interest rates may mean that you receive higher interest as well, right? We think of what GIC rates maybe were 2 years ago versus where they are today. That power of compounding may work in your favor as well. So when I think of that question, again, there's lots going on and it's very hard to predict. So maybe running through a few different scenarios with your financial professional, and again, making sure your money's working for you, not against you, is critical.
And the next one, Marianne, throwing it back to you, I'm looking for suggestions related to when you make more money than your partner and not letting resentment build and how to keep balance in the relationship.
Yeah, and this goes back to my answer earlier, is make it about the numbers. So you have two people, one makes 50,000, the other makes 75,000. You share all of the expenses equally, and the person who has the 25,000 can decide what they want to do with that. So you can make it fair, you can make it equitable, but you've got to sit down and make it about the numbers and not about I make more than you. When we say we're going to throw it all in together, then yeah, maybe there is resentment. When we say we're going to each pay 50% of the bills, that can make it a little less so.
Right. I think the next question, I'm not sure, Mike, I think we've more or less answered. How do you save when inflation is unpredictable and rising monthly and it throws off your plan in place?
Sure. Yeah, I think the only thing I'll add there is, again, talking the budget is divide it from what are your needs, what are your wants, what is the savings and debt part of it, and maybe if inflation's hitting your wants and disposable or discretionary expenses, then perhaps you can tone those down. But again, I think you want to look at your overall budget and say, hey, let's account for the inflation that is there when you're considering your future budget.
And the next question to you as well, Mike, how can we find a financial advisor that isn't just trying to sell services from their company? So trusting the advice that you're getting is key.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's always resources. I know we have them at Canada Life. I mean, a couple of questions come to mind is maybe understanding how was that financial professional compensated, right? Are they salaried? Are they commissioned? What are their designations? Are they a certified financial planner? Do they have other designations that make them qualified? Those would be two starting points, I would say, and just in terms of considering what are they providing you.
Great. Question, I'm currently paying into a pension. Should I have additional savings for retirement?
Yeah, another great question. And again, it's everyone's different. So there's not one right answer to the question. What I would say is you'd want to consider what is your lifestyle today? What is that desired lifestyle in retirement? And how much is your lifestyle cost you realistically? And generally, I mean, it depends. Every pension could be different, but that would be where I would start and go from there in terms of do you save additionally? And I will plug us again. I know there's resources at Canada Life that can help you with that as well.
Yeah, and I'll just mention that the resources that we have made available to anybody participating in today's webinar, all of the resources that we are highlighting are free and publicly available. So whether it's Government of Canada resources, some Canada Life free public tools and resources, Workplace Strategies has some resources. They're all there for you to take a look at in English and French. So the next question, is there a budget app that you would recommend? I don't know that we would necessarily recommend one, but we can point you to the ones that are in the resource links that you can take a look at. And did we talk about I'm currently paying into a pension? Should I have addition? We just talked about that, right? So we can remove that one. Do you recommend prioritizing purchasing a home over renting?
Oh, that's a very interesting one, and maybe we'll. I'll pass it to Marianne as well, but I'll give you a few comments. Again, I think in terms of planning, right? So myself, when I think of owning a home, it's not just a mortgage that you have to pay for. So you need to consider what are the other costs associated with owning a home over renting, right? And obviously interest rates are playing a part of that as well. Now, I think from your own well-being, like is that your priority, right? So is owning a home mean a lot to you? Would that help you from an emotional and mental well-being? These are all things that I kind of consider when you're thinking, should I own the home? There's that financial aspect that you need to dot your I's and cross your T's, but also what is the emotional impact or what does that mean from your lifestyle perspective as well?
Yeah. And you can't answer that question without taking a look at everything else and your goals and objectives for sure.
Yeah.
Marianne, the next question is from an individual who says, I'm out of work, I've run out of income, and I owe past due taxes, small business loans, and everyday bills. I'm overwhelmed and I do not see any way out. What now?
Yeah. So what now is to contact some of they're charities, credit counseling services that exist in Canada and get them to help you. They can contact the tax department. They can contact whoever holds your loans. They can work out a plan for you. There is help. So don't feel like you're stuck. You're not. You're just in a difficult position that many people have been in, and there's free services to help you get out.
Excellent. And Vanessa wants to know how often we should be reviewing our investments and how do we know just disappeared on me. I don't know if you saw the question. Like, we'll answer the first part. How often should we be reviewing our investments?
Yeah, I think I saw it. So
Okay.
It's a great question, Vanessa. So again, I think a couple things come to mind. Certainly when life events occur, you want to make sure to review your investments, making sure they're still aligned with your objectives. Again, typically you'll get a quarterly statement. So I would say there's no one right or wrong. It may depend on your portfolio, but certainly quarterly reviewing it and then meeting with a professional. I think most would say at least yearly if nothing's happened. But I would say my answer would be as things change, you want to make sure to review how are you investing and what that looks like for yourself.
And just that you were talking about your My Financial File earlier, that at least an annual review of your budget and your expenses and that sort of thing on top of that, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Marianne, resources to assist an employee who has financial problems due to gambling addiction.
Mm-hmm. So there's different ones in different provinces, Gamblers Anonymous. But again, there's charities that are set up to help with this. The financial problem is only secondary to the gambling addiction. So first we have to understand what anxiety is fueling the gambling addiction, reduce that anxiety so they can manage the addiction, and then the financial problems can be addressed.
Great. If you're already in your 40s, does it make any sense to invest in property at current interest rates if you truly don't desire to stay put in retirement? So I guess that means in that property.
Oh, very interesting. So again, I think to each his own when you think of retirement planning. So if you have envisioned owning property or not in retirement, I think that's a big part of it. Again, you'd want to, from a pure financial perspective, you definitely want to partner with a financial professional to understand what are the risks, how does it fit in your budget in terms of what that means for you financially. But I like that you did put kind of an envision in your retirement in your question. So that means that you're thinking about it. And investing in housing, like housing is an investment just like anything else, right? It's an asset. So understanding what are the potential ups and downs, and obviously interest rates affect potentially housing prices and the value. So you'd want to work with a professional, understand what that means for you.
Yeah. I am 65 and working full time. and I get weird looks when someone finds this out. Can you help me tell me how to deal with this? And we were talking earlier about thinking about what we want to do in retirement. And I think one of the things that Ida mentioned was, maybe we want to do something different or have a second job. Maybe you're happy in the job you're in, so there's no rush to retire just because you're 65. So any thoughts, I guess, Marianne, on managing that?
Yeah, my cheeky answer would be my brain's not retirement age yet.
There you go. Perfect. I like it. And I think, I don't think that people working beyond 65 is as unusual as it used to be, and it's going to get less and less so as we need people in the workforce, right? The last question I'm seeing here, I think we've answered the other ones. I'll go to the bottom. How do you dig yourself out of debt? So I know, Marianne, you've talked about the various debt counseling societies across the country. And Mike,
I'll just add that they will help you to amalgamate your debt and make it easy for you to slowly pay it off while you're able to manage to live.
Yeah, and they also have tools and resources around budgeting and savings and managing debt as well, right, Mike?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I'd say certainly deal with the Professional Credit Counseling Society. And one thing comes to mind is knowing what is that interest on that debt, right? Not all debt's the same. So knowing, hey, what is the interest rate you're paying on the debts you owe is, I think, a critical step of empowering yourself as well.
Right. We just have a couple of minutes left. We'll take one more question and then we'll close out for today. This question is, I recently received an inheritance. Should I pay off debt or invest? I'm 5 years away from retirement.
Very good. Well, again, I think work with a professional on this. What's the priority for you? Again, when you think of a concept like an opportunity cost, so what is the interest you're paying off your debt? What is your risk tolerance if you do invest? What are the risks of investing as well? So again, I think if you're 5 years away, you'd want to deal with a professional to go through the pros and cons. And again, there's never one right answer to these types of questions, unfortunately, but I think understanding what are the variables, what are the risks you're willing to take, and what's most important to you, again, to help with your financial well-being.
Thank you, Mike and Marianne, for helping us answer today's questions. And we're just about out of time. We have just over a minute left. So we hope that those of you who listened today found this event helpful. Thank you for spending your time with us. We have been recording this session and we will be posting it on the Workplace Strategies for Mental Health YouTube channel within a few days. You can, as I said, visit the webinar's event page for a list of free tools and resources that you can use throughout any of the phases of life that we've talked about today. Again, we've compiled resources from the Government of Canada, Canada Life, and Workplace Strategies for Mental Health. All are free and publicly available to anyone. Don't forget that if you are part of an employee assistance plan, you may have if you're part of an employee benefit plan, you may through that plan have access to an employee assistance program. And many of those programs do offer financial well-being resources that you can check out as well. Thank you all for your attention today, and we plan to do another public event in May of 2024, so we hope that you will join us then.